Okay, the first thing we're going to do today is learn how to finish the ends of the tie on the mask. So whether your ties have been stitched into your mask, let me take this off so I can show you. Like this, you can still finish the ties before or after. Okay? So that it's not mandatory that you do it before. On this particular mask that I'm finishing today, I will be doing it before. So I have folded and folded, and as we always do with hand sewing, I'm going to hide my knot in the fold right here. There's my knot. And then I will stitch by putting my needle through both of the outside layers and just stitch. And maybe 2 or 3 stitches on this side, just holding them together. And then I will stitch along the inside edge. I know it's very small. I hope you're being able to see this okay. So I'm biting the strap and then I bite the fold. And then I pull it through. Then I'm to my corner again, bite the tie, bite the fold, pull it through. And then continue, bite the tie, the fold, the tie. And then I'm going to tie a knot. So it's all the way around. I'm going to do the same knot as always. Make a loop. Pull it through. Whoops, well, going to do a second one because that broke and I want that to be secured. So I'm going to pull it all the way through here now. And I want to secure this side. Okay, and then I'm going to push that through, hide my thread. I'm actually going to do that also on the other side to make sure it's doubly secure. So now I'm on my other side. Making a loop, putting my needle through the loop, and making a loop. Put my needle through the loop, and then hide my tail by pushing my needle all the way in. Then I can pull it through and cut it. So that's complete. Okay. All right. I'm going to move my table slightly so that I can show you how to pin these on again. And we're ready to sew around. So Cara, do you want to screen share and show me where you are with your mask?
Sure, hold on one second. Okay, so this is my opening.
Nice.
And I think I got it,
Oh,
everything inside and pinned.
good. And then your ties are inside.
The ties are inside, so I already pinned them, so I'll have to do.
It's a little bit bumpy.
Yeah.
But that's not going to affect the outside edges.
Yeah, I think I got the The edges pulled around it.
Yeah, they look good. That looks exactly like what it should look like. Very nice.
Yeah.
So you have your lining and your right side of your fabric are facing each other like this.
So I have, back here's the muslin,
Yeah.
then I have the lining, then I have the straps, and then I have the right side of the
Okay,
material.
very good.
Okay.
Excellent that we checked. You need to unpin and readjust slightly.
Oh, for what?
Because what's going to happen is are your straps pinned to that to the filter lining?
Yes.
Okay, so that will be against your face if you do that, and you'd rather have the lining against your face. So what I would do is just
I'm confused.
yeah, put it on your table.
Okay. Okay,
Okay,
so
I'm gonna demo this one more time. This will be really helpful for everybody. I'll just move down a little. Okay, so let's say I have my 4 straps. I have my right side of my fabric and my lining. The mask filter needs to be on the side of the lining, which it is, but you flip your lining and mask filter. So I'm going to cut another piece of my mask filter so that I can show you. This is the mask filter. And you don't want this to be against your face. You want your lining, which is the washed muslin, to be against your face. So let me just cut this. Okay. So again, I have my 3 layers, my filter and my lining and my outer layer. And I'm going to put my outer layer facing my lining because when I reverse it, I want the lining to be inside and the filter to be encased in the middle of everything. So it goes inside lining, filter, and lining. Inside, filter, and lining. So let's put this together with.
Where do the straps go?
Okay, the straps are going to go on the lining.
Not the filter.
Not the filter. But wait a minute. If you've stitched yours to the filter, let me just do an experiment. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so here's what you need to do. They have to be on the lining. And the reason why is because when you reverse it, they have to be here on the lining. Because when you reverse this, your straps will be inside, hidden between the filter and the right side of the fabric.
Okay.
So one thing you can do is, let me see that again, Cara, and let me see unpin this part for me, and then let me take a look at your, and then put that, can you put that? Okay, so what you can do is to make this quick, just cut your ties off. Are they stitched on by hand or by machine?
No, I actually didn't stitch them.
Okay, great.
I just did them.
So unpin them. That's
okay.
That's even better. Good job.
So, okay, so
we're going to go slowly so that we get into this position.
Okay, so my brain just can't wrap it. So we have material right side, and then the lining, which will, okay. Go ahead, sorry.
That's okay. Put your lining, let me,
So first I need to pin my straps to my muslin, my lining.
I say first put your muslin and your filter together. So
Okay,
these are on my table together.
got
Here's
it.
my muslin and my filter. On
Okay,
the muslin side, I'm going to pin my strap. So Smenson, you should be doing this too.
mhm.
And pin them all this way. The outer layer is over here. We don't care about that right now. So pin it to the muslin side. Okay. And you can look at this boo-boo where I have the multiple thread. That's because that's where I hand stitched it to show you the hand stitching portion. So that was my back stitching. And then I finished it by doing it by machine, but it's actually very tough to get that out. So it might just stay in there. Okay. So this is a part I said you could hand stitch this or machine stitch it. So I've pinned mine at a diagonal. So that I can just stitch across here and it'll take me just a second to machine stitch that, okay? And then I'm going to gather, like you did very nicely, gather my straps into the center, okay? So everyone get to this point. Okay, I'm going to take this over to the machine and stitch.
I'm so far behind you.
So if it's any solace, Wallace has done his the same way, Cara. So
Okay. I actually woke up thinking about it this morning because I just couldn't grasp my head around it. Like something wasn't right.
yeah, so no worries. Okay, I'm going to take I have to unplug and take you over to the machine. Okay. So the layers go. Here's my machine. Have a light. Actually, I think it's better if I put it this way. Okay. So you're going to pin your strap to the lining and the interfacing or the filter is on the inside of the lining. So do that first. Everyone should be to that area. Pin your straps to your lining.
So when we sew it, totally. It'll be filter, lining, straps, right side material, correct? So the filter is going to be exposed while we're sewing. Okay.
Filter, lining, straps,
Right
and
side.
the right side of the lining and the right side of the fabric go together in encasing the straps. Yes, that's correct. Okay. So we're going to stay here now. And we'll get the straps pinned. They're pinned to the corner of your lining. And your lining is pinned to your filter. Filter, lining, strap. Putting in my bobbin. My bobbin will go through my tension device up through here and go clockwise. Remember, we don't put it through this hole. Inserting, clear the click, hold the top thread, push it down and up, and it collects that bobbin thread for me. Okay, so you may have seen that my foot just came off. In order to correct that, I will just lower my take up my presser foot bar, and then it will reattach. Okay, my take up lever's in the full upright position. So now I'm just going to stitch across these quickly. Don't you do that. Remember, we want the head of the pin away from the corner. And when you clip at the fabric. And then I clip the back side. So I get rid of all those threads. I'm clipping my threads right into the trash can. Okay, so I have 2 of them stitched in the corners, and now I'm going to stitch my other 2. How you doing, Wally? Do you have yours pinned to the lining? Okay, and the lining is attached, pinned to your filter. I'm telling you, this is counterintuitive. It feels like you're doing something backwards, but it's because we're doing it inside out at this point, okay? It's inside out. I like hearing that. Smenson, do you have your scraps done?
What was that?
Do you have your ties completed?
Oh, not really.
Okay, so you need to get those done now. Please work on those now.
Okay.
Because I'm going to give you several minutes to work on these while I prep up the fabric modification. Okay, so now I have my mask with my 4 corners. I'm going to just put my ties and fold them to the center.
Okay.
So I'm grouping them and I'm going to put a pin so that I don't accidentally catch the ends of these in my mask. All right, so I have all my masks together. It's better if I lift it up a bit so that you can, my hand isn't completely in the way because I'm working in a different location today. Okay. So here is my mask, lining, ties, lining, and filter. Put the face of the mask towards the ties. And then you're going to pin. And I can write this on the board. Would that be helpful? So we have a step-by-step?
Sure.
Okay.
I think you might have even done that Wednesday, but for some reason
That's okay. I'm just going to,
I must have.
I'll just do it again. It's not a problem at all. So now I'm pinning perpendicular to my stitching line. My stitching line will be parallel to the edge of the fabric, leaving about a 2-inch opening up at the top. Oh, that's a needle. Okay, now I'll go back to the board and we'll write this on the board and then I'll talk you through the rest of it and we can stitch. Okay. So we did the layers and the folding process, and now I'm going to do assembling.
Pam, I have to step away for 1 minute.
So you're going to layer the filter to the wrong side of the lining first. Pin ties to corners of lining. Actually, let's do it this way. Okay, and then this will just be mixed up in here. So you're pinning the tie, and then you're going to stitch the tie. Okay, so we have them pinned and stitched. Let me see if I can do full screen. Okay, here we go. All right, so your filter is attached to the wrong side of the lining. The lining is where the ties are pinned, and then they are stitched at the corner. So the ties are stitched at the corner of the lining. The back side is your filter. You see the dot side. That's very important that that's inside, because this part of the lining will end up at your face. Once you get to this point, you want to control these in the center so that they don't fall down here, so that you're not stitching them. So I will control that. That's why I'm pinning it in the center. It's not very, it's kind of messy on the inside, okay? So don't worry about that. Like Cara showed us before, it'll be a bit of a lump. All we care about is this first 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so now I'm sure that my ties are not going to fall inside my stitching line, okay? My ties are secured in the center, and they are on the side of my lining, stitched to the corner of my lining. Ties are stitched at all 4 corners. Now I'm going to put the face, the right side of my mask to my lining side, okay? So that will be number 4. Pin right side of outer layer to lining, hiding the tie. Okay, hiding the ties. And then we want to pin, leave an opening at the top. So now this is my right side. I'm going to pin here. This is going to stay open. And then I'm going to pin pin, pin, and this is going to then get stitched. Okay, so leave 2-inch opening. Okay, so that's my stitching. Let me give you a close-up view of that, and you can see that this is open. All right, so here's my mask. I've pinned the right side of my outer layer to the lining, hiding the ties. And I'm going to leave a 2-inch opening at the top. So let me pin that for you now, and you can see what that looks like. Here's my mask. It's pretty lumpy because I have all my ties in here, but the important thing is where the outer 1/4 inch that I'm going to stitch, I have flat ties. So now I'm going to pin. Make sure that you secure the ties inside on the center, Wally. The ties have to be pinned to the center. If they're not pinned to the center, they have to be stitched to the corner. Here's where they're stitched. And then we're going to pin them here so that this part doesn't interfere with the outside stitching. Okay. So I'm going to pin. This is my, this will be my top, which I'm going to leave open. I'm going to use the head of my pin away from my stitching area. And you might want to mark that so that you know you're going to leave it open, but we will start and end there. So line up your edges. Okay. And as we go back to the board, I can place my mask here. My 2 inches are open here, and I'm ready to stitch around the outside edges of my mask at 1/4 inch. And remember, 1/4 inch is your presser foot, leaving this part open. Okay. So there's our assemblage. And now we'll go sew the outside edge. Back to the machine. Remember that the presser foot is 1/4 inch. So that's what I'm going to use for my gauge. So I'm just trying to scoot this down and get this view thing. In case anybody comes in, I need to be able to enter them. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to place my mask on my machine this way. I will use, my pins are perpendicular to my edge. The pins are perpendicular to the edge. So now I'm going to stitch at 1/4 of an inch, pivot at my corner, stitch at 1/4 of an inch, pivot, stitch, pivot, stitch, and end so that I'm leaving a 2-inch opening. Make sure that your layers are lined up. Because with a 1/4 of an inch, if I'm off like this on the back side, I won't be catching all 3 of my layers. So I want to double check that all the way around before I stitch. And I'm going to get rid of all these extra frays because this is this kind of thing. These extra frayed edges are the kind of thing that can get into your machine inside of your feed dog right here, and they can create a mess in the bobbin. So I want to get rid of all these just to keep it tidy. And if you've pulled your thread, then you probably have already gotten rid of them. Then you kind of group those together, put them in your trash. Okay, here's the top of my mask, and I will stitch. And again, we are stitching at just a regular 2.5, which is our regular straight stitch, using my presser foot as my opening. I'm going to pause for a moment. This is not ideal, but I'm going to take a minute and show you, if you have no iron, how you can make your ties. So it's a little tricky, but you can fold your edges in, fold your edges in, and then fold again. So if you don't have an iron, you can actually do this. You have to be very patient. So I'm going to fold and pin with 1 pin, not with 2. And then I'll continue folding, fold, and fold to the center, and then fold again. The other thing you can do, remember, you can use a shoelace, and I'll also show you how to do an elastic, should you have elastic. So here's fold and fold, and doing it without pressing if you have no iron. This is for Svensson. Got it? Okay. So I'm going to stitch along this fold line and pull these pins out as I go. I can also, let me pin perpendicular for you so that you don't have to do that necessarily. Because we always pin perpendicular. And that way you can actually get that stitched in place. Does that make sense to you, Svensson? Okay, so I have my 1.5 right here.
I'm still working on it, and I tear my first one apart because it was not.
Okay, so see how I have it like this? And then I'm folding it and folding it to the inside, and then I fold again.
Okay.
Okay, Now, if you get stuck here, you can do this part by hand. You have the beautiful back stitch. So I'm just going to show you how to do this by machine. Make sure your raw edges are tucked in. Do you have a shoelace you could use, Smenson?
What?
You could also use shoelaces and
Sure.
not have to worry. You know what a shoelace is?
Not really.
Okay, do you wear shoes that tie up?
Shoe tie?
Yeah,
I can just use that directly?
you can use that directly.
Okay.
Because look at how it looks like this, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, then I can get rid of this. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, absolutely. Shoelaces are one of the things you can use. Any kind of tie will work, okay?
Okay.
So that's how you can fold and then machine stitch.
Okay.
How's the bobbin going, Cara?
I just finished it, man. Yeah, I'm just gonna start sewing now.
Okay. So that would be, I'm not going to finish this because I'm not going to use it, but that's how you could stitch this in place and use your pins to hold it, and it will be fine. Now I'm going to also show you the elastic method. Let's use a different one. Always return your take-up lever to the full upright position every time. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to pause for a second while I set up the elastic. So to show an elastic version, you guys are all to this point, so I'm going to undo this just temporarily. I prefer ties, but some people want the elastic, and it's a little tricky. So I'm going to take this off. Remove my ties by just cutting them. That's why I said, Cara, had you stitched them in or not, because you could have just cut them like this if they'd been stitched in. Okay. The same is true. The elastic goes in the same place the ties go, but you want to make sure that the elastic is straight. So let's get rid of these completely. Because I cut very close to the stitching line, I can just remove this edge of the tie so I don't have the bulk. Okay. So here's my 7 inches. This takes us back to the very funny video that we watched. Cutting 7 inches. You lay that also exactly in the same place as your tie. And you have to make sure that it stays flat. And pin both corners. So it's a bit awkward. And you create a loop. Once you get that pinned, you want to see if that's the right comfort level for you. So you can literally try this on by holding it up. I think that might be a little loose for me, so I'm going to just make it a teeny bit tighter. So 7 is suggested, but you know, you might need more, you might need a little less. Okay. So now I have my elastics pinned and they are flat. So they're pinned at the corner, they make a curve, and they're pinned at the other corner, and I'll stitch that edge. Then I'll pin my pieces back together with my right sides, okay? You can actually just leave these pinned in place, but it's more secure and you have fewer threads and fewer interruptions if you sew them. So once you get your all 4 corners in, put your right side of your fabric together. So we're going to do that. Right sides together and pin. Right sides together and pin. If, remember, keep that spaghetti of your ties in the center pinned so you're not going to stitch them on the outside edge. Okay. Now we're ready to stitch around the outside of the mask. Our corners are secure. I'm leaving an opening at the top of my mask, which I will pin. Okay. So I will start here, stitch to the edge, pivot, stitch and pivot, stitch and pivot, making sure that I'm maintaining 1/4 of an inch and I'm catching all 3 layers all the way around. Okay. Spenson, did you find your shoelaces? So putting it in at 1/4 of an inch. There you go. I think that might be a bit better visual. Okay, and then you will stitch back stitch, and stitch at 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Pivot and stitch across 2 stitches on the corner so that it's you can turn that more easily, and then stitch down your side of your fabric. When you get to the corner, you pivot, stitch across the corner, 1 or 2 stitches. And then you get to your 1/4 of an inch and stitch your long sides. You're seeing the fringe of my straight of the grain. Pivot. And I need to go one more. It's going to be too big of a corner. Across. That's going to help you turn the corner when you are turning this in just a second. So now I'm lining it up to my finish. And backstitch. Stop with my take-up lever in the full upright position. Pull it away and trim my thread close to my garment. Okay. I'm going to look at all sides. Making sure that I have caught all of my layers all the way around, that my lining is caught. That looks a little skimpy right there. Okay. And remove my pins. I'm going to stitch that edge one more time just to make sure that it is secure. Everything else looks really good, but I'm making sure, this is like doing the French seam. I'm making sure that I can see all 3 of my layers inside my stitching line so that when I turn this right side out, I'm not going to have a frayed edge. So this one needs a little bit more. It's a little narrower than 1/4 of an inch. So I wasn't paying close enough attention. So I'm going to just stitch that one edge. The great thing about it being on the inside, nobody's going to see it. And you can see right here, it was not. So there we go. All right, so that will be inside my mask. There's where I corrected. Absolutely no worries about that. And now I'm going to trim my corners. Oops, did I just lose you?
I'm here.
Oh, okay, wait a minute. I just need to, hold on a second. Okay, I gotta find you guys. Somehow I've erased you. Just a second. Okay, and now let me go to view. I know I did full screen and then I lost you, so. Wait, I think I have to go down here. There we go. Okay, thanks. So I'm trimming my corners to get rid of that extra little piece of stuff. And then this is the cool magic trick. We're going to pull this right side out through that hole. Find your hole in between the lining and the garment layer. And then start pushing your thumb to, if you find a corner, I put my finger in the corner and then I push my finger through that corner. Find a corner, another corner. Here, my finger's in there, push it through the other corner. And do the same thing for the other side. Here's my finger, push it through. And the other one will follow. I'm going to use my ties or my elastics to help pull through. And then my mask is on the right side. Okay. So at this point, you want to press this edge so that it's flat. If you do not have an iron, then you'll want to use your finger pressing and you can pin that in place so that it is absolutely flat, okay? And then just check all the way around that that you have a flat piece and that you don't see your lining on the right side. When you come to your opening, tuck that in, your 1/4 of an inch, both sides, and then pin. So now I'm going to iron from this side because I want to have my white not showing at all on my black side. Or I can iron from this side and do the same. Okay. So if you don't have an iron, you can just use your fingers and press this together and pin like I've pinned here. I'm rolling this out so that it's flat. And you can use those elastics or your ties to pull the corners out. And then iron. Okay, so I've ironed all the way around. I'm just double checking to make sure I don't see any of the white exposed. And I'm going to check my opening and make sure that's flat. And tuck my threads in. Okay, this ironing is a control thing because the very next thing we're going to do is stitch around the outside edge. Okay, so let's go back to the machine. Let's see what she's trying to get into the meeting, so I'm going to double check with her. So now we have our nice flat mask with either the straps or the elastics. You want to start at your opening. Make sure that you know where that is so that you get that really securely, really secure. I have a little thread here from my stitching. I'm going to make sure it's inside. Remember that we pin perpendicular. And this time we're going to top stitch. Top stitch means that we will actually see it in our finished mask. So for me, I'm going to stitch on the black side and you will see it on both sides. So I'm going to start, and I'm not going to start right here because that would be in the center of my face. So I'm going to start on the side. Okay, so I'm going to stitch all the way around at 1/4 of an inch on the side. Actually, I'm going to stitch closer than that. I'm going to stitch as close. This is edge stitching. I'm going to stitch as close as I can. So let me show you how this looks. So I'm going to stitch inside of my presser foot. And I am looking right into the presser foot right here so that I see exactly where I'm stitching. And sorry, this bounces. That's why with the vibration of the sewing machine, so it's a little bit loud. I'll go slowly so that it doesn't bounce so much. And I'm getting to the edge. Stitch across my edge. Here's my opening. I want to make sure I'm really secure there. The straps really help you navigate that corner. So it gets you right on the edge, which is excellent. Okay, and I'm going to finish. This time we stitch all the way around, leaving no opening. I'm on my 4th corner, stitching across. And then I will backstitch as I meet my other stitching line. And I pull out. My stitching line has been met. I will pull all my threads to one side and clip them. So here's where I've stitched on my line all the way around. And on the back side, you can see it is stitched all the way around. And then where I joined it. Okay. And I can clip that a little bit better. So I only have 2 more steps, which is to create the pleats. And you create the pleats because otherwise this would just sit on your face like this and not be secured. Okay, so we need to pleat to make this fit the face. That's the, remember we talked about darts? So this is the dart detail for your mask. Let's go to the instruction sheet first.
Pam,
Yeah.
can you give me like 2 minutes to just catch up?
Yeah, no worries. Let's just pause.
Okay.
Okay, so you want to make incremental marks. So what we did here was we did every 2 inches. It's interesting when the dry erase goes across it, it's invisible. So I'm going to make it bigger. And then we're going to create a pinch and fold that down. So on my mask, where I have marked my increments, I'm going to just fold my other side to it. You can mark both increments, and then I can just mark with my ruler, and I know they're matched. So let me do that, and I'll show you how that works. Sorry for giving you whiplash. So here it is. I've folded both my layers, and I'm just marking. So because I've laid them together, I have marked them both exactly the same. Does that make sense to everybody? And then using that as the middle, I'm going to pinch and fold that down. So mark every 2 inches. And then at that mark, pinch and fold. So it's really about 1/4 of an inch. Pinch and fold. Pinch and fold. So there's my pinch and there's my fold. So now I have 3 folds. And when I go to the other side, I do the same thing. I use my mark as my pinch, and I'm going to fold these. I fold them the same direction. So these I'm folding down. And pinch and fold. Okay, and now I will measure them against each other. So that's how they'd look. I'm going to measure them against each other, right, to make sure that my sides are even. Also, at this time, you can try them on with your pins away from you and see if the mask fits and it gives you some shape. Okay, so that feels good to me. And the tricky part now is to sew across these pleats. These are pleats, and they are a shaping device, just like a dart. So we will start at the top and follow down the fold line to secure that, and then we'll continue all the way around. So I will mark on the board what we just did. Mark 3 increments. Equal on both sides. Okay. And then you will pinch at the mark, so that on the side you're going to pinch these 3 marks like this, And then that will cause them to lay, we want them to lay down. So then we will have a pinch here, a pinch here, a pinch here, and your mask. And same on this side. That creates a fold that loosely goes across the mask. So pinch on the mark. Fold down. Pin in place. And then stitch across pleat in down fold position. I'm going to say in folded down position. So I'm going to stitch this way. And that will hold my pleats down. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm going to show you my mask again. So here's my mask. I have pinned my pieces down, pinched and pinned down. And now with them in the down position, I'm going to stitch, making sure that this is equal. I'm going to stitch across here. And on this side, if this is easier to see, okay, not easier. I think this is easier. All right, but you want to stitch with the folded down going with you, okay? So pin so that you're perpendicular, and then we're going to carefully place this underneath the machine. All right, let's go to the machine. Questions before we go? No? Okay. Again, when you get them pinned, you want to measure and make sure your sides are even, okay? And now I'm just going to stitch these in place. So this wants to stick out, so I'm going to move it back in so that it will actually obey. And these are tricky. Do not underestimate the fact that they are tricky. So try to pin the top of the back fold in place so that these are nice and tidy. Okay, now I'm going to stitch close to this edge. And you want to start above your pleat and then stitch down. Because this is quite a lot of thickness, so you want to go slowly. And then we're actually going to stitch all the way around. All right, so that is secured. And now I can take my pins out. And I'm going to stitch my other side, making sure that I stitch down. So I'm going to stitch on my, yep, there we go. You start off your pleat because the thickness is going to want to just move your presser foot a little bit. So you want to start off there. And once I'm done, I will stitch all the way around one more time. So I've stitched there, and I'm going to stitch all the way around just to secure it. So it goes through multiple washings. This side I have already stitched, right? Remember? So let me just get that equal. And I can end there, but I will go ahead and just reinforce that side. And stitch the long side across the top. Pivot, and I'm back to where I started on my pleats. Trimming my threads. I have 2 lines of stitching. And I can try my mask on. I think I still am going to tighten this a little, so I'm going to make a bit of a pleat right here and tighten this up just a touch. So I'm going to let you work now, and then I'm going to stop this recording. The next recording will be about dyeing.